All right, let's get started now. I want to thank you everyone for tuning in to today's earlier segment of Crypto World Radio. My name is Wabi and I host these spaces every day, usually at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But sometimes when there are some time zone differences or depending on our special guest schedule, that might be a little bit earlier, a little bit later. If you enjoy these crypto specific conversations from Because Bitcoin, feel free to follow us here at Because Bitcoin and turn on bell notifications. And if you guys are not aware, because Bitcoin is now being sponsored by BingX for a trading competition, if you want to check that out, feel free to check out the pinned tweet at Because Bitcoin. And if you enjoy things like Hyperblock and Nansen and Glassnode, feel free to join our Discord. We will be adding those premium channels within the quarter. So, without further ado, if you guys aren't able to stick around for the entire 1 hour space or so, this space will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel in about 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded. Same thing goes with all of our other spaces. And just so you guys are made aware, all of our content will be streaming through Twitter Spaces. We have Market Check at 11 a.m. Eastern Time with Max, William, and Tommy. And they and then we have Market Talk at 4:15 with Carter, and he covers macroeconomic news and things of that nature. And then with myself, excuse me for that. Excuse me for that, Mr. Z. Excuse me for that. So without further ado, I want to welcome our. Damn, dude, you really had to get me there, huh? Oh gosh, I was going full talk show mode there. But without further ado, I want to introduce our guest, good friend of the show, and a personal hero of mine that I've been following for a minute. Big Cheds. He hosts amazing spaces. After the show is completed, be sure to check him out. He usually hosts his spaces as well with his friend Big Chonas. I absolutely love these guys. They're super cool. They're entertaining and they tell it to you how it is. So without further ado, Big Cheds, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us, man. I've been trying to work this out for a minute, and God bless you for coming through, man. Thank you. How are you today, brother?
It's a nice intro. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me, man. I'm just glad to hang out. Um, Spaces is great. You can just kind of talk to people. It's there's a lot more context and nuance than like fighting with people back and forth on Twitter. Like Spaces is just more chill. So I'm a fan.
I agree with you, man. Thank you so much. I find that really cool as well. You get to find out like who's behind the PFP, and back
Yeah.
then all we really had were things like YouTube. So I guess we can start off with yeah, I know I asked you this on one of your spaces a few weeks ago, but if you don't mind, I'd like for the audience to know, how did you come across not only digital assets, right, but just trading in general? You're like a market wizard, sir. So how did you come across trading in general, man?
It's tough to live up to like praise, when everyone's like, "So, tell us why you're the best," and you're like, "I'm not really that good," but appreciate it, man. Yeah, I mean, like growing up, but I wrote like a condensed story. I just published Trading Quotes, my third book, and I kind of wrote like a condensed story in the beginning. But like I always wanted to trade growing up, and it seemed like really fun and all that. But I kind of put that on hold for a while, and eventually got back into it. While I was playing poker too, and like poker taught me risk management. So when I got back into trading equities, this is more than 15 years ago. I was kind of fumbling my way around. And then I started doing pot stocks. There's a lot of volatility with the pot stock boom back in like 2013, 2014. And then I started to really get serious about TA, studying candlesticks. I did that for a few years, kind of built up my social media account. And then I started dabbling with classical charting as well. And then around 2017, I discovered crypto through a buddy of mine who just showed me, like Coinbase app on his phone. And I was like, well, that's cool. What is this stuff? And I'm curious, like, are people into crypto out there? And I started tweeting out charts because I'm really just a chart guy. I kind of start out assuming everything's a scam. And so, like that, I just take profit, and I'm a little more cautious probably than most people, but I just follow the price. It kind of sorts out everything else for me. I don't have to figure out, what's real and what's not. Like they'll let the market decide. So I'm a price guy. But anyway, I tweeted out those charts, and people were like really about Bitcoin. They were really about like Litecoin and Bitcoin back then, especially Litecoin. And so I kind of leaned into that. And then I started getting even more into TA, started reading more textbooks. I became founding analyst at Bitcoin Live back in 2018. I have like unbelievable team I work with. And then let's see, I eventually wrote, then I did CMT level one chartered market technician. And that really taught me like some of the rules I wasn't sure about, some of the things I was unsure about, because everyone kind of like has an opinion and I wasn't sure like what was real or not. So I did CMT. That really kind of buttressed or strengthened my foundation. And then I wrote Trading Wisdom, which has been really popular back in 2021. And you mentioned spaces. I've been doing a lot of those, but I've been kind of chilling on that. I worked so hard last year, and at this point, I'm trying to like enjoy life. So I don't mind like maybe hanging out, talking to other people, doing in other spaces. But like I don't necessarily like back until last year, I was doing like at least one a week. So you can check those out on my YouTube if you're interested. To I get 27 episodes of like Ask Me Anything with Cheds, like 3 hours of me taking random questions from people. But like now I can't like promise I'm going to do that many more. At least not right now. I'm trying to enjoy life. So that's where I'm at now, man, and just glad to be here.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate you saying all of that stuff. And when it comes to crypto, do you trade it anything differently than, say, like commodities or stocks? Like, do you look at things like sentiment? Do you look at things like narrative, or is it strictly just price? I remember that was an emphasis that you would put on your spaces. Like, if you're going to trade an asset class, you focus on price and price
Yeah.
alone.
Well, yeah. Plus sentiment. I mean, I've been pretty clear. Like I missed the price bottom on Bitcoin, but I didn't miss the sentiment bottom. I mean, I started talking about in November we have a sentiment bottom, and let's look for the price bottom. But I didn't. I don't really. I'm never really going to nail the bottom because I'm trying not to fight the trend. I got long at 18.5. But I look at sentiment. I definitely look at sentiment, and that helps me a lot because you can, when people get really excited or people are kind of heavily on one side of the seesaw, versus another. I definitely pay attention to that. So for me, sentiment plus technicals, and I use that across really any market, anything I'm trading.
Perfect, man. And as far as sentiment is concerned, did you see anything different in late 2022 with the whole? I don't want to sound like I'm regurgitating the same information because I'm honestly like, I am sick as shit of hearing. I'm sick as shit about hearing about FTX this, FTX that. It's just a bunch of
Yeah,
baloney, in my opinion. But
yeah.
I wanted to know your take. Did you find anything different with this sentiment bottom compared to late 2018? And I recall that time. It was very like, oh, is this asset class over? Is it just completely
Yeah,
done for? So I want to know your
it
takes on
always
that as
feels
well.
dead. Yeah, it always feels dead. Um, Near a bottom, and I'll fix my audio in just 2 seconds here. But leading up into like November, before November into the summer, you heard a lot of people saying like I'm bullish because everyone's bearish, and like that was fine as like a haha like counter trade thing, but like it was too early, and they're just anybody who'd been around, would have told you there was not a sentiment bottom yet, and I was clear about that from my perspective. Not that I'm always right because I'm often wrong, just like anyone else, but people who've been around multiple cycles would, told you, hey, this really isn't the bottom. It can get worse. And it did get worse. People are trying to call sentiment bottom back to like May, like that big May 12th wick we had down. Oh, this is sentiment bottom. It's like, no, you're so early. There's more to go. There's more pain. And there was. And we traded sideways for 150 days and it was just so boring. It was just like, what are we even, it like makes you question yourself. Like, why am I even here? What am I doing? Like, is this a market I'm trading like 150 days sideways? But then we broke down and that caused panic because now we're going to 12K and that's where it's supposed to go. And it was really supposed to go there because that's where the next major demand or support area was, at least in my read. And we found a bottom. We kind of, jumped right back into that 150 day zone, getting back at 18.5 long. But um, we hit sentiment bottom in November because it was after we broke down from that 150-day range. Like there was a sentiment bottom then, and it did feel like Bitcoin wasn't coming back. And I'm not saying it's going to all-time high. I'm not saying the bottom is definitely in. I think the bottom's probably in. And much more likely now than than back then. But there was clearly some type of a bounce bottom, a big time sentiment bottom. So 2018 was similar, but you have it's similar, but you have like the pace at which you approach a sentiment bottom, right? You can have a slow bleed into a sentiment bottom, and you can have it so bad so quickly also that it can cause a sentiment bottom. So they're not really like alike. But if and so how do you gauge that? And people ask, well, how do you know? It's like, are you talking to everyone? It's like, no, I mean, of course, I've curated my own like Twitter feed who I like listen to, right? But you just get a sense of something. It's like with anything with muscle memory, where you like look at something and you know it. Like that's why you want to trade charts that in and out. You kind of get it. And the same thing with sentiment is you've got like the right feel of who to follow, and that's why sometimes people follow people they disagree with or that like are usually one way or another. You can kind of use them as like sentiment data. So it was just based on social media, at least for me, with a kind of a combination of that like price trigger and kind of breaking down, with the really the revelations about what was going on with FTX. And like, so when that happens, everyone's like, well, what's next? Genesis is coming or whatever is next. Once you start breaking down, you're 15.5, you can't buy because what is next? What is the next shoe? And some people got in there and they did a better job than me, and I give them credit for it. I mean, I got lucky. I mean, I called the top, but I got lucky. Like I probably won't nail the top on the day next time. I feel like that's probably a fluke. I'll probably be close next time. And I want to be close. Like it's hard to really, if you're nailing it, you either got lucky or you were early and you just kind of just wrote it out when you really shouldn't have. So some people got in, nailed it, nailed the absolute lows, or at least so far absolute lows, and I'll give them credit for it. But I mean, sentiment's real because we're emotional creatures, and everything we do. It's like when you load something, when you take a position in something, all of a sudden you just feeling like it's going up, and you start looking for people who agree with you, and now you're interpreting news that comes out in a way that's favorable for your position. So it just messes with you having money in something, and so that's sentiment, and people bleed out their emotions, they bleed out their sentiment, they do it on social media. You can read about it, and you kind of use that as a tool, I think, in some way.
Well, you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? Sentiment is real. Oh, it's real. And Cheds, I agree with you on muscle memory, man. It's uh it's like all you have to do is just focus on the three compound lifts, right? Squat, bench, and deadlift. And sometimes people follow like way too many people and they follow way too many indicators, and it's like they're focusing so much on how much they can lift on calf raises and not how much they can put a bar on their back and squat, right?
Yeah.
So for yourself, Cheds, as far as sentiment is concerned, have you seen any shift in your view as far as sentiment? I'll share. I'll tell you what, man. I'm sort of feeling euphoric at the moment, even though I
Yeah.
missed the AI train. And the only time I can recall on the last time I felt that way was back in 2021. I was all in on Luna, and there was this
Yeah.
massive rotation between Luna, Solana, AVAX, and Phantom. But Phantom
Yeah.
was just fucking going parabolic. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what do I do? What is going on? You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
No, I mean it can be frustrating. It's one of those things where you look at something that had like a huge gap up, or well, I guess in equities you would get a gap, not so in crypto, but just like a big green candle with volume behind it. And you're like, man, I missed it. But then it goes red a couple days, kind of gives back like a third of the move. And then like boom, it makes another leg. And you're like, why didn't I just buy the consolidation? Um, and then all of a sudden now, it does it again. And you're like, should I wait? And then you buy, and then now at the top. And it's this whole thing of like it just had feeling like you missed out, feeling like you're left out. It's the worst. It's the worst. And it hits you the hardest when you've had a couple bad sessions, when you've had a few bad trades. You kind of start looking for a silver bullet. You start looking for that one trade that's going to make it easy, that one ticker that's just going to up only, and kind of you won't have to make any hard decisions on. And those are super rare. AI is interesting right now, and market likes narratives to pump with. I mean, there's probably a list of 5 or 10 cryptos doing the AI thing. I only have one or two off the top of my head, like Fetch. Will they continue? I don't know. And you kind of what asked me about like sentiment now. It's interesting because a lot of people have been expecting a deeper retrace on Bitcoin. And have already kind of been calling the top of this little move here for a little while, and I understand why. But there's been a big paradigm shift, right? With breaking back above 18K, now closing above the daily MA 200, breaking 21.5, breaking 22.5. There's clearly bull force evident, and you kind of look at how it's consolidating in the daily chart. It's still pretty clean. I mean, we're still consolidating near the top of the channel. That resets everything. Resets all those oscillators. It allows for another leg up. Maybe it's just to 25, 25.5. Maybe reject there. That's the big level that needs to flip for bulls to officially shut the door on the bear narrative, in my opinion. 25.5 above the weekly 50, above the weekly 200. But like people with sentiment, I've even seen some kind of short-term bears, more traders kind of bears who could play the channel saying like, I'm surprised Bitcoin's still above 22K or 23K, you know, that type of thing. So it's holding on to its gains, and so you kind of have to respect that. You have to observe that, so you kind of get a sense of the momentum, the momentum of the move. But sentiment's shifting. I mean, sentiment will shift. It's not a sentiment bottom. It's more mixed right now. So you can't. There's no like clear read on sentiment right here, as much certainly as there was, at the end of last year.
Cheds, so with that being said, do you believe that there is a possibility of us entering the super cycle? And basically, I want to give you some context on what a super cycle is, because I do believe that accuracy in language, when I say this, is of the utmost importance, right? And when people think about the super cycle, they think it's just, oh, it's just up only across all cryptocurrencies. But when I think of the term super cycle, it's essentially a rapid acceleration in adoption, right? And we're slowly seeing that, right? Like there's basically 10x more individuals within this marketplace than there was in 2019. And that was a run that you have mentioned quite a bit, right? Like we don't have to go to all-time high in the next quote unquote bull market, right? It could just
Yep.
simply be, we pump from 15 to 50, retrace 20K, and then we can potentially factor in the possibility of going to all-time highs, because it's happened every quote unquote cycle before. So with the super cycle, it's basically a rapid acceleration in adoption, right? And then there's a reduction in likelihood of a prolonged bear market as institutional and mainstream capital enter the market. And from what we're seeing, right, like from the start of the year up until now, we've been seeing more like institutional buyers as far as the VC side is concerned. They're going into things like AI chains. They're investing into these new protocols. One of them is modular blockchain, right? I know you don't really get into like too much of the fundamental side of stuff.
Quote
Um,
unquote fundamentals.
yeah, yeah. But I wanted to know your thoughts on that. Would you be able to entertain the possibility of a super cycle? And it seems that like everybody is expecting this crazy prolonged
Hmm.
recession like the 70s. So I wanted to know your thoughts on that, Big Chets. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, brother.
Yeah, man. I like how you set it up. I mean, I'm not like this is like part two where I don't add as much value as I just did in part one because I'm not a fundamental analyst. I don't know anything about what VCs are doing. When I hear the word super cycle, it's like who knows means something. You defined it, but anybody listening has a different idea in mind. And for me, even like, what's the point of speculating that far out? So I don't know, man. Like we're still, I mean, it's still up for grabs, the trend, even though bulls have a little move. And so for me to start to like, you know, think that far out, it's like fun, but is it like what's the point? And I'll entertain it, but like um people want to gamble. People need it. They always look for a casino. Bitcoin's a casino. What may or may not happen with adoption or institutional people getting in and all that. I mean, I literally have no idea. I think it really depends. It depends on just I think it's more about retail than institutions. I think it's always been. And like, does retail have money to play with? And so that's kind of what it's going to boil down to. I don't know. Like, I'm not an economist. I'm terrible at that stuff, but I think it's gonna, what do you feel that retail is gonna have money to play with, right? And so you think about that, right? And however you arrive at that conclusion based on what are they being squeezed? Are the wages high enough? How is rent too high? What's food costs? Is like what's going on? What's the backdrop, right? So without retail and a healthy like, money to play with, like it's not gonna happen in terms of like a big move. I think it's equally as likely to just go sideways for 2 years, drift up, sideways. As long as it's still around, it's fine, at least for me. I just need a game to play, right? I don't need it to go to 100K tomorrow. So I think the more tempered and approach is probably just it's going to be around. The price, may bounce around and do what we don't want it to do, but it will probably slowly drift up over time. So I don't know if that means like a super cycle. I don't know what the hell that would be, but like I would think of more maybe slow drift up with pockets of volatility when retail has money to play with. And I'm not convinced necessarily that they will, although clearly there's still a lot of money in the system right now.
Cheds, and speaking about REITs still having money to play with, oftentimes, rather most of the time, they'll go into things like DeFi, right?
Mhm.
They'll lock up their funds
Yeah,
in a certain protocol like Aave, Maker, what have you. So I
you're
wanted to
locked
know.
up into Hex, right, for the next 7 years.
So I wanted to know your thoughts, Cheds. Have you ever done any sort of diving on things like DeFi, or has it
No,
mainly? Oh, flat out no. Okay, okay,
no,
okay.
no, definitely not. I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. There's more weaknesses than strengths, and one of them is like, I mean, I know it means decentralized finance. I understand there's like Soul, I guess, and there's all these other level twos. Is that what it's called? Layer twos? I literally don't know anything about DeFi. And I micro specialize in the Bitcoin price chart and like trading psychology, risk management stuff. And I just try to be good at that.
I agree with you, man. You should stick to what you're good at, man. Like for myself, I honestly tried my hardest. I really did to learn
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
about macroeconomics and what this index is doing, what that index is doing. And it wasn't until I started really deep diving more into these spaces, including yours,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like you're better off just sticking to what you're good at, focusing on
Yeah.
your chart and not
Yeah.
really anything else. And my specialty
Yeah.
is DeFi. Like I go to
Mm.
DeFi Mama, I go to these other websites which give me a gauge of how much inflows and outflows are going towards this specific ecosystem, right? I'm not really like, a volatility kind of guy, like looking at charts or any of that stuff. I am more of a fundamental approach, and that's what's worked for me. And
Hmm.
at times it is a weakness, but nobody's perfect, right?
But who's right?
Um,
I don't think anyone's ever right
exactly,
or wrong with
exactly.
fundamentals. I
Yeah.
feel like it's like law.
Chez, are you speaking right now? Chez, can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I got a phone
you
call.
cut off
Yeah,
there.
I got a phone call.
Oh, okay, okay,
So I feel like
okay,
it's like,
okay.
but who's ever right or wrong? I never find out who's right. And it's really annoying. And like I can put two brilliant people in the room to tell me that I'm looking at an apple or it's a pear. Or like I don't, it's like whatever. They'll make an argument. Maybe that's a bad example, but um like this is a good painting versus this is a bad painting. It's like judging art. It's like law. Like a good lawyer definitely can make both sides of the argument. So like I feel like no, we never find out who's right or wrong. So how are you supposed to study something like fundamentals? Like what is that?
Exactly. Cheds. So my follow-up to that is, so I'm assuming the reason why you were attracted to crypto was mainly the volatility. Am I
Definitely.
correct on that?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Plus people liked my
Perfect, man.
charts. Plus people liked my charts. So I leaned into it. And people were like retweeting me and it was cool. I found a community where I could add value, and it was just like a really nice fit.
So the community basically warmed your heart.
It
It
was,
made you feel like family.
I mean, it's not just that. We've talked about this before. This is when I was diagnosed with
Yeah.
cancer too, and so like it gave me something to really fill my life up with, rather than like the shit I was going through was pretty rough. So I was like a super crypto guy instead of like a super cancer guy. You know what I mean? And so it happened. It came to me at a really important time in my life. And so it was beneficial for me in multiple ways. So the volatility and the people and the kind of identity or kind of a life focus, at a time when I needed one.
God bless you, Cheds. I'm glad you made it through, brother. I'm glad you made it through.
Thanks, bud.
I'll actually be I'll actually be getting some of your books. Been meaning to catch up on stuff. Just been so busy doing things outside of Twitter and some life stuff. So
Appreciate you, man. And
yeah, man.
anybody
Yeah.
listening, go to my YouTube at Cheds Trading. I have a third of Trading Wisdom up there for free in the playlist Trading Wisdom, just for anybody who wants to check that out.
And just a bit of a shout out to Mr. Z. He was the one that actually created the little graphic with your PFP and my PFP. I hope that brought a smile on your face, brother.
Nice. Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, brother. Yeah. Guys, I see we are approaching the halfway mark. My name is Wabi. Right now, we're talking to Big Cheds. I host these spaces almost every day, and we're just talking shop. We're talking all things markets, volatility, and we're getting to know Cheds a bit more. So, if you want to come up and speak, give any statements, ask any questions, feel free to click that request button, and I'll bring you right up. The space is going to end in about 30 minutes. So, in case you're not able to stick through, it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded. So, with that being said, I'm going to bring up the first speaker, Nicholas 55X. Nicholas, can you hear us? You good?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, the feedback is gnarly, man. Are you able to fix the audio on your end?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I'm outside right now. But I want to ask a question to chat. And you say that you trade based on sentiment, but is there any way in which you quantify or qualify the sentiment, like a metric or something like that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Let's go ahead and mute you too. But I know it's tough. It's not always, you can't always be in like a sound studio, right? So um, yeah, and I talked about that a little bit earlier. I mean, so I'm in tune to sentiment anyway. Like I've studied psychology and I think about people, and that's interesting to me. So my mind, is set up to get a sense of sentiment. I've played poker, and you have to like read people. So um, I use social media, and you kind of look for just a lot of enthusiasm or a lot of despair, and that's kind of a simple way to put it, but that's generally what it is. And then you look at the momentum at which the sentiment builds, the excitement builds, and the momentum at which the despair builds, or how it's shifting, or how that sentiment maybe corresponds with a certain market event at a certain time when the price is at a certain area. So you kind of take all that information in at the same time. What else we got, Wabi? Let's bring someone else, brother.
Yeah, I'm bringing up Prince V. Do you guys see him as a speaker? I think
Yeah.
it's coming. I think it's coming on my end. Like I didn't hear anything from the other speakers, so I think it's coming on my end.
What is?
I'm gonna drop and come back. I'm gonna drop and come back.
All right. Prince, can you hear us, buddy? Andre.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, what's going on, Andre? I can hear you just fine, man. What's going on?
Hey guys, how you doing? I got a question for Cheds. Cheds, I saw earlier on your Twitter post that you did post, you were getting questions about the Death Cross and the Golden
Yeah.
Cross on the daily and the weekly. Um,
Yeah.
but it seems as though you kind of you were more concerned about, I guess, the support and resistance areas at those different price levels.
Yeah.
Okay, if it wasn't for those support and resistance areas, which one of those would you give more credence to?
Weekly, because it's the larger time frame.
Okay.
And let me just take another look, because you want to consider a couple things. You want to think about moving average cross. It's like a Japanese candlestick, and it's a great question, by the way, Andre. Right? So you think about like a Japanese candlestick, it needs a trend to reverse. Like a bullish reversal candlestick after sideways isn't a bullish reversal because you're not reversing something, right? You want like a bullish reversal candle after a move down, right? So moving average cross, and I talk about this in Trading Wisdom and in Trading Quotes. Moving average cross, it needs a trend to cross and reverse from, number one. So like when the price like in the 150-day range in Bitcoin, like towards the end, those moving averages were worthless pretty much because they're all sideways. So of course they're going to cross up and down. Let's see. You want to look at price proximity to price. So with the daily golden cross, a bunch of that move is already baked in, right? You have the price is currently right now. I'll just quickly take a look. My mouse will. Yeah, it's 16% higher than the cross. So you've already got a 16% move baked in on the daily chart, right? The weekly, the price is right there at the cross, maybe a couple percentage points lower, and it's a larger time frame. So you would definitely take the weekly more than the daily, which is why it was interesting to me. I saw a couple folks tweeting about the daily golden cross, and I'm like, wait a minute, are you really looking at the whole trend here, or just what you want to see?
Yeah. Yeah,
but the larger point is that neither of them really matter. They don't tell us anything. What do they tell us?
Yeah.
What does that what does that tell us? That tells us the last 50 days have been weaker than the last 200 on Bitcoin. Fine, but like, what's the price doing? Is it holding support? That's all that matters. Like, where's your trade? Where's your trade? It's not based on a golden cross. I mean, maybe, or death cross. Maybe that can alert you to start to look for some type of an entry, but it's not based on that. And it doesn't tell you anything. It's not like all of a sudden, like the light turns on and we have new information. It's like, no, what does it tell us? We see the chart in front of us developing for the last 50 days. Like, we see everything. There's no new information. And so that's going to allow you to make bad decisions because there's either a golden cross or a death cross in your mind. And it's a big, scary word. And so therefore X, Y, and Z. And no, again, it tells you nothing new. These are it's lagging data.
Gotcha. And do you feel like either one of those play a part in the, I guess, trading psychology of people, since that's like a
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, like most people, we're simple too. Like, we try to get too complicated, but we're all pretty simple. We want we want things to be simple when they're not. So like that's why CNBC headlines, the Dow is up 200 points because whatever, and they just have to invent a narrative. It doesn't matter. It's just some story. Like, people want a simple story. They want things to be simple. They want it to be fed to them in an understandable way. Like, their life is hard enough anyway. We're just trying to get by, doing our thing. We don't have time to stop and philosophize about why the price is doing whatever it's doing. So when you see golden cross, see death cross, it's like, okay, good. Now I can make easy decisions because I know it's going to go up or because I know it's going to go down. So I think it definitely plays into psychology. And my point is, it really shouldn't play into how you, as a seasoned analyst, a trader, speculator, are making your decisions.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Chad.
Appreciate you, man.
Cheds, and talking about narrative, sometimes I can really, crush the spirit of a trader or even a fundamental guy like myself. So with you having, multiple years of market experience, what are some things that you recommend for individuals to kind of refresh their mind? Like, there's a term that says go out and touch grass, but for you personally, what are some things that you like to do to kind of like, all right, I'm going to step back and do X, Y, and Z? What are some of the things that you enjoy doing outside of trading, brother?
Well, it's different. As all different questions. There's a lot of stuff that I enjoy doing, and then there's the stuff I do when I feel like I'm getting too close to it, and I'm doing it too much. I mean, I have tons of hobbies now. I'm trying to really, I'm getting into martial arts. I'm taking an art class right now. I love playing basketball. I'm playing Age of Empires 4 a lot, and like watching videos and strategy. I'm into like just video games, just normal stuff. But like when but when I'm into it too much and it's owning me, it's like, so you should never bet more than an amount you can walk away from, right? Like, don't let a trade own you. That's number one. Like, if you're losing sleep over a trade, like, it's not worth it. It's just really not worth it. you got to find ways to work within yourself and maybe even be, outsmart yourself a little bit. So like what I've been doing recently is like push-ups. I've been stopping myself now from like I'll wake up in the morning and check the chart because I do it all the time. I'm trying to stay on top of stuff. Now I'm adding in push-ups. If I want to check the price, I have to do 5 push-ups. Doing little things to slow myself down. Maybe even closing the browser, um, or trying to just be conscious and aware. Why am I checking my phone again? Is it a habit? I just keep checking the phone, keep checking the price. Nothing's changed. It's been like 3 minutes, you know? So you have to start to be aware of what you're doing. Am I doing it too much? Everyone's different. It's awareness, it's mindfulness. How do you cultivate mindfulness? It's different for each of us. Exercise, diet. For me, it's a balance. I work out a lot, but I try to, I really enjoy life when the time is right. So I try to have a balance. But you have to, if you're, I have a lot of tweets and like quotes in this where I've just sat around and come up with like interesting, almost like, I've been like high smoking weed and like here's a fun way to say it. And like, I think about all this stuff. I think about the psychology, and if your sleep sucks, like you are what you eat, right? And so if your sleep sucks, so will your trading, right? So it's like, how did you set yourself up for sleep that night? And that's going to play over into the next day. So it's thinking about all that, thinking about yourself, yourself, in the whole, your mind, body, and your spirit. Are you doing, how are you doing enough to make yourself happy? Are you surrounding yourself with the right people who are bringing you down? Are you making bad trades because you're not even giving it attention and you're just winging it? Like, are you risking money and not respecting the money? You got to stop and think about all this stuff, and try to find ways to put limits on yourself. If you want to enter a trade, write it down on a piece of paper why you think you should enter the trade, right? Then go for a walk, or maybe, whatever, do some push-ups, come back, read it again. Does it still make sense? Like, just find a way. Each of us have to find our way, but find a way to slow yourself down, and I think your results will improve.
Chad, so speaking about video games, I often find that the way you navigate through a video game is kind of like how you navigate trading at times. There are
Hmm.
people that, they play God of War, right? One of my favorite games,
Yeah.
God of War. And in God of War,
Yeah.
right, the new one in specific, you're able to upgrade your character, and you're able to put like little chinks like your strength, your defense, and I find myself just booting the living shit out of my strength and not so much on defense, right? And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like you have those people that are just apes, right? And they just go attack, attack,
Hmm.
attack, attack, attack. No defense, no defense, just going at it right for the jugular, right? And then there's also, being way too defensive and not so much on the offense. And sometimes a good offense is a good defense. And Ched's talking about video games, man. Kind of off
Hmm.
topic here, but do you find yourself being more on the PC, given like you're an active trader and all that stuff, or do you like to kind of step back from the computer and go on a big screen, play some Xbox or some
Yeah.
PlayStation?
It kind of flows. It's been more Steam, right? So I'm on the PC lately. It's been more Steam, but like there's times I was playing, I think, like a game called like No Man's Sky, which is like a space exploration game. I was playing that like on PlayStation. And then I'll get into I'll play, there's times where I'm playing like Railway Empire on like the X on the Switch or something. But now it's more so PC right now. I think it just depends on the game, and calls also like what, the phase I'm at in my life. Where if I want to get on more with, here I'm playing on the computer. I'm still kind of on the computer, but like a console game, you kind of sitting back. I'm on the chair now. I'm in a little kind of different area, and I'm just doing this. Um, so it depends. There's times when I really love getting into that, and I'll dive into a deep video game hole. And I'm kind of halfway there now. Like I just published the last book, and I want to play video games, but there's so much else I want to do. So I can't like completely wind down like everything I'm doing. So I'm still doing stuff. You know, still doing stuff. But yeah, I'm on the Steam right now on the PC.
And how's your training? And how's your training coming along, brother? What would you say? What's your favorite lift, man? Mine's the deadlift. It has to be the deadlift, and I'll
Oh,
save
like
the bar
weights.
press.
So I do
Yeah,
cycle training. I do cycle training, trading, right? Or circuit trading. What's it called? Where you keep your heart rate
hit.
up.
It's hit. HIIT from Mike
I haven't
Menser.
heard that one, but there's also a cycle versus circuit training. Basically, I mix between cardio. I do cardio, and then I'll do a weight machine, then back to cardio, and I do like a cardio routine. It's pretty intense where I do like a knee crunch and I'll do like a kick and then keep the kick in the air and do another kick and I just whatever. I keep my heart rate up. Then I'll jump and do like 30 reps in a machine and then I'll go do the cardio thing. So I'm doing more. So I'm trying to get more definition. So I'm doing more reps than like heavy weights. You know what I mean? I'll just do 30. I think they're called like exhaustion sets where you kind of like start at a weight and then like you can't do any more and you go down to like a lower weight. I think that's what it's called. But I only do that like once or twice a week. I'm not like a super, gym rat because I'm moving around doing lots of other stuff. Practicing martial arts helped me keep me in shape as well. So um, it's really about what you eat, though. I've really been pinning down that. So I'm very, very specific about what I eat, especially during the week. So on the weekend, I can just go and do whatever I want on the weekend.
And that's obviously a good enhancement to your trading when you're seeing all volatility getting to a position, all those endorphins kicking in, you see things more clearly, you sleep better, and of course you are what you eat, and what you eat definitely impacts the amount of sleep that you have. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when you're playing these sort of PvP markets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not taking care of your body, you're
Mm-hmm.
not really gonna you're not gonna be in the best mental state.
Yeah.
And there's this quote, Cheds. I know, you like to read a lot, and you're an
I don't
author.
like to read that much. I don't like to read that. I like to write more than I
That's
read. Like
rare.
reading's hard, dude. Reading's
That is
hard,
rare.
man. I always forget. Like I'll get halfway through the page and I'll be like thinking about something. And I'll have to go back and be like, "What was I just reading?" So
Jeez, that's a first, man. Usually with authors, they're like they always have their head in a book, reading like 10
no,
books a month.
no. I like the trading books I read were like among the first books I'd read in like 10 years. Like because I was into trading, I could read them, but I am not a reader. I'm like on that. I'd be like a 3 out of 10 on the reading scale, honestly. So, but
Well,
anyway,
guys, I see we have about 10 minutes left. My name is Wabi. I host these spaces every day on Because Bitcoin. It's usually the crypto specific segment from our Twitter Spaces content. If anybody is in the crowd and they want to come up and speak, feel free to click that request button. I'll bring you right up. We're here just talking about all things market, wisdom, and psychology, straight from Big Cheds. He's written 3 books before, and feel free to check that out. Feel free to follow him. It's up on his all his links are in his bio. He also has a YouTube channel, so feel free to check him out. In case you're new, welcome. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us here at Because Bitcoin. If you enjoy our content, feel free to give us a follow and turn on bell notifications so you can be made aware of when we go live with these spaces. So yeah, Cheds. So I
yep,
guess
yep,
I'll ask like a pretty straightforward question, and
sure.
it's a pretty bland question. So, what are you currently seeing within the market right now? Like, do you
Uh,
think bulls are in control at the moment, or are you seeing
Mark,
like momentum stall out as far as
crypto or what?
yeah,
You talking about crypto?
Bitcoin, yeah, Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's nice. I think bulls definitely have the edge. I mean, short term. I mean, we're still trading above the daily MA20, and we're above 22.5. I mean, you're buying any dip 22.5 and above for sure. And then you're kind of more cautious, definitely down below. And then you start to look at 20K, that breaks 18.5. But I mean, you're definitely buying above 22.5. I mean, just from a simple trend following standpoint. I mean, we're above the daily MA200 now for the first time in like a year. And we've been here for, we're clearly in a different phase. Price has accelerated out of um out of that November to January range. Back in 18K plus, broke the lower high from November, broke the lower high from September. I mean, obviously bulls have the edge right now on the daily time frame. Weekly, it's debatable. You've kind of a flat, slight downtrend still on the weekly. I mean, you've got moving average crosses on the weekly. You're above you're above EMA 8, and you can see the lower high breaks pretty well in the weekly, but the weekly screams 25.5, like above or below. Like the weekly screams that gives you at least the ability to view any bounce up to 25.5 as an underside retest. And now you got the convergence of the MA 50 and 200 right there. I mean, it's a huge spot. And if you haven't entered, you have a wonderful entry. If it breaks 25.5, you can go long with full confidence, right? On a long time frame trade. That's a swing entry. So who's in charge depends on the time frame. The daily chart is promising. You're buying the dip as a trader. That's more of a trader's time frame. And you still have 4-hour lower Bollinger dips being rewarded, another trader time frame. I put out a tweet at like 22.8. I said this looks like a good spot to buy with like 22.4K. 22.4 stop loss. Because it could easily break down by the time we finish the spaces. But like you're still giving bulls the edge until proven otherwise. And I think certainly above 22.5, you're really giving them an edge on like a trader's time frame, 4-hour or daily.
Cheds, and we were below 20K for a while, and it came to a point where volatility was ranging within $100 to $150.
It was ridiculous. Yeah,
dude, I don't remember a time over the
January
last
7th. Yeah,
dude, and I mean that breakout was impressive, and
yes, stronger than I anticipated. I expected to reject at 18K. I took shorts, and I got stopped out around like 18.2, 18.3, and then I went long. But I expected it to reject there.
Even myself, Cheds, that first weekly close, I remember I was hosting a space, and I had scalped Solana, and I had gotten a bag of Aptos, and I originally had thought that Bitcoin would get to the 2017 all-time high and just consolidate there for a while some coins and their narratives ripped. But as I was doing the space, like BTC put in a 15% candle within the hour. And
that's ridiculous. Yeah. We haven't seen that in a while.
And I remember being on a space, and I was like, Bitcoin is barely up 20% year to date, and my buddy's like, whoa, I don't know, dude, we're ripping right now. It's up 31% year to date, and I'm like, wow, wow, you know what I'm saying?
So that's you're speaking of like the pace of movement and momentum. That's such a big factor. And seeing that after seeing nothing for so long, and seeing that after breaking down post FTX and seeing that after 18.5, like that happened after we broke 18.5, and that's what's impressive. Because you saw really almost as soon as we broke 18.5, the market started to rip, because everyone who could look at a chart saw that this was now a deviation. The break below was a deviation or a spring or a bear trap, or whatever you want to call it, whatever nomenclature, right, you want to use. And boom, it just started ripping. And so, I mean, of course, bulls have the edge right now. But it was stronger than I anticipated, and I'll say that. Clearly, I'll say it. I've been clear about that.
Chaz, and yourself, you don't really look at things like order books or liquidation levels or any of the on-chain stuff, right? You strictly focus on price and that alone, right?
Price and sentiment. But there's some really good order book traders I've met throughout my time, and so I don't want to kind of come across as putting them down or disparaging them, but it's just not what I do. And it doesn't work with my philosophy, really. I mean, I know like an order book can be, especially an order book, like a prop bid or an ask wall. People see a big bid and they think it's bullish, but that's actually bearish, right? A prop bid, they're trying to hold up the price, convince retail to buy in just above, and then if they start to fill, they pull it. I mean, you can manipulate an order book, but a price print is the price. That's the trend. That's what something is worth in that moment. There's no debate. I don't have to guess what it's going to be worth tomorrow. I know what it's worth in that moment. It's real data. So that plus sentiment is what I use. But I don't really use anything like on-chain or order book at this point.
Chads, and before we start wrapping up, one last question, brother. What would you recommend somebody do during this time if they've suffered a big loss or gotten a big one? What do you do personally, and what would you advise individuals?
Every time I've blown up an account, which has been 3 or 4 times, I've gone and read a textbook. All right, you have to give yourself a new tool. You have to give yourself a new skill every time. You have to come back stronger, and by doing that, you're going to give yourself confidence, which is what you need. But if you're going to try again, you got to make sure you're going to journal it. You need to be, if you're having these big losses, you have to at least learn something from it. It's the only way to gain back value. You have to try to gain back some value. That's your rebate, right? So coincidentally, the book 4 I'm writing is a trading journal. It's sort of worked on, but whatever. But the point is, you need to gain back value. So write down your trades, how you're feeling when you're entering, what the idea is, where it will fail, and then write down what happened. So if you just donkey off your entire account, at least you'll have a story you can read about. Then take a break, go read a book, take some time off, come back when you have confidence. If you come back before that, you're done. You need to have some confidence. How do you gain that? That's kind of individual. But I recommend learning some more about TA or whatever your method is. Learn a new skill, come back, and then try again.
Thank you, Cheds. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your Tuesday morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, brother. Thank you for joining us here at Because Bitcoin, man. I appreciate you. Can't wait for one of your spaces. I know you're taking some sort of a break, but I know I caught like the last minute of your prior space a couple of days ago.
That was fun.
But
That was not recorded. I had a few drinks. That was one of those
yeah.
when it's unrecorded. I'm
Oh
kind of just
man.
winging it.
Oh man, I remember when you fell asleep and
That was pretty
Jonas was.
bad.
Oh boy, man, always a trip being on those super long spaces of yours, man. And sometimes they
Yeah.
get big. So I
Yeah.
recommend everyone here in the audience follow Big Cheds. And
Thanks.
without further ado, Big Cheds, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Big Cheds. Check out Cheds Trading on YouTube if you want to learn TA. I have a great playlist called Masterclass Webinars. There's 3 beginner, 1 advanced. Those will really kind of hook you up on TA. And then check out the free version of my book, Trading Wisdom, on my YouTube.
Thank you, Cheds. Thank you. Well, without further ado, we'll start wrapping up here. I want to thank everyone in the audience for coming to an earlier edition of Crypto World Radio presented to you by Because Bitcoin. If you enjoyed this content, feel free to follow us here at Because Bitcoin and turn on bell notifications so that you can be made aware of when these spaces go live. Usually our content stream starts off at 11 a.m. Eastern time with our CEO and Snorlax and Premise, and then 4:15 with Market Talk with Carter. And we usually have guests like Dr. Jeff Ross and individuals in the macroeconomics and equities field and commodities and things like that. And then myself, usually at 7 p.m. Eastern time or earlier in the day or more towards the evening. That is always subject to be announced given some time zone differences and what have you. And usually with all of our spaces, they are uploaded 5 to 10 minutes after they're concluded. I want to remind you guys, check up our pinned tweet up on Because Bitcoin and up here on the Nest for our trading competition sponsored by BingX. And if you guys are interested in things like High Block when it comes to liquidation levels and things like Nansen and also Glassnode, those will be implemented onto our Discord across a few premium channels. So without further ado, I want to thank Big Cheds for taking the time out of his day. Thank you so much, brother. We look forward to chatting with you soon. And be sure to tune into Market Talk in about 15 minutes or so with Carter. So without further ado, I want to thank everyone. Take care and God bless you all.
Peace out.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm gonna get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, and you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians, you would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000. You know, depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. You can ping your phone. Now, the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.